Now, other interesting culture news, you have Bud Light. Football is back, but their fans are not. So, again, they attempted to tweet. They tried. They tried so hard to tweet. And yet they just failed as usual, in spite of increasing censorship, which also is a sure sign you are mentally or morally on the wrong, is if the only way your ideas can exist is if you silence your enemies or silence your opposition, like they do in 1984. The best book. Some would say the best book of all time. It's easily top 10. It has to be. Now, it looks like it's just cliche music, but we'll play a little bit of it. Oh, the Bud Light can has football team logos on it. Now people will buy it. I can't help. I know the average IQ is decreasing precipitously these days, but how many people are motivated? Like, I'm buying that beer because I see my team. I know people treat sports balls in the United States like it's their family or their personality, but it's literally, what is it, 18 cents of paint slapped on that little thing? It's probably actually less than that if you have the economies of scale. But yeah, it's just the football team plastered above the Bud Light, which, hilariously enough, we'll talk about the comments, so don't worry, we will. But anyway. Oh, it's got a little font. The official beer of, whatever that is, which it's one of those cliche things where I always joke, especially about Dallas Cowboys. They are a brilliant marketing company. They may actually make more money from marketing than anything else. If you have enough money, you can be the official whatever the hell you want of the Dallas Cowboys. I know they have sales reps that go around. They ask businesses, "Do you want to be the exclusive, the official the official toothpick supplier of the Dallas Cowboys? Just give us $250,000." So it's one of those things where I wish more people realize to be the official X of anything, not always, but usually just takes a vast amount of money. Which is why I'm usually not impressed by sports team sponsorships or celebrity sponsorships, really. But we'll get back to this terrible, terrible commercial. I was going to say, I don't know who does these commercials, but they're poorly produced. They're just zooming in on the can and slightly rotating it with not even music. It's just loud. Well, I'm sure some people would consider it music, but it's loud instruments. It says easy to drink. False advertising. It's not easy to drink unless you're already, presumably, as the youth might say, hammered. It's quite repulsive, repugnant, disgusting. It's quite difficult to drink, I would argue. So that's false advertising. They say easy to drink, and then they have the audacity to say easy to enjoy? Certainly not. When was the last time you enjoyed a Bud Light? Even in college, which is, when I think of Bud Light, that is the cliche college staple. Now, personally, I always preferred spirits because, less calories. You gotta look sharp. But it was one of those things where, did anyone really enjoy it? Like, I feel like a lot of people just pretend to like beer in general, but like with Bud Light, it's just known for being the cheapest beer in college. But that's just my 3 cents. Let's keep going. It's almost done. It is funny. So they got, again, this will be a fun the test of sports balls knowledge. So they got a picture of a arrow. I think that's the Kansas Chiefs. You have a picture of a bull, which I think is a Houston Bulls. Who knows? You have the little, what is it? Not an otter. You have the dolphin. So, yeah, Miami Dolphin. That's something. An orange helmet. That's terrible. I'm going to guess Cleveland Browns, maybe? You have the Hawk. So, okay, I know Seattle Seahawks. You have SF, which, just because of business, I know San Francisco. And then you have some Bulls, which, New York Bulls? No. They have Bulls on a can. That's presumably a sports solid team as well. But I can't help but notice the best teams aren't on there. Like, when I think of football, I know enough to know that Tom Brady's one of the most successful sport. I actually saw him when he was in college. Go Blue, some might say. But it's one of those things where the best teams are not on these cans. And I can't help but think, like, if I was the owner of the Patriots, I'd be like, there's no damn way you're putting my logo in that. Like, I know it says this official beer of the NFL, so they got to deal with the league. But I wonder if this was specifically carved out so that I would think the teams would have to have the permission, so it'd be an individual contract as well as a league contract. But I can't help but think a lot of the teams would say, there's no way in hell you're taking our logo, which, again, when we talk about sports balls teams, the most important thing is the brand. Like beer itself, people are paying for the logo. They're paying for the brand. It's not just the taste of the swill or the beer, or in this case, the sports balls experience of seeing the players. The players come and go. The logo, well, unless you're the morons who rebrand the Washington Redskins, is forever. So 4 seconds left. It's almost done, but it's painful. Well, that was an exciting ending. So, of course, as one might think, it was ratioed, eviscerated, owned, or pwned, as the youth might say. Urban Dictionary is becoming quite fascinating, I might say. Now, within all these statistics are taken within 10 hours, so they posted at the 10-hour mark, wrote down all these statistics. Within 10 hours, they got 478,000 views. So they actually got a pretty good audience. Their last tweet, I believe they only got 75,000? Which again, for a big brand, that's an epic fail. So they got about 500,000 views. So that's pretty good. A lot of people saw this. Now, of 500,000 people who saw this, guess how many people liked it? So 500,000 people, 378,000 people just about, they all saw this, and they got 381 likes, which, again, perhaps that's the last 381 employees at Anheuser-Busch InBev. So that ratio is zero. Ironically, I find enjoyment in these fun little cliche things, but the like ratio is 0.08, which is actually the legal distinction of getting drunk in the United States, I believe, is 0.08 blood alcohol volume back. I don't drink enough to know all the nuances, but yeah, 0.08. I thought that's kind of funny. A little jumbo joke in there, I'm sure. Now, some of the top responses, and of course they were all highly entertaining. You have our reliable Rich Mooney, who does those awesome polls, which actually, they're starting to hide polls, where if you just ask, he's asking people, as of today, based on this commercial, what would you buy, Anheuser-Busch InBev or not Anheuser-Busch InBev? They're even hiding that, which, again, that's in no way controversial. That's just asking people what they would buy. That's not pejorative or coercive. That's one of the most unbiased polls or responses you can see these days. But even that they're scared of because they know the ratio is never good. Now, you have Rich Mooney, one of his tweets was, quote, laugh out loud at Bud Light, moving tweets about Bill Gates buying Anheuser-Busch InBev stock to, quote, hidden replies. I don't blame them for wanting to keep that quiet, but it's quite obvious, unquote. So he actually had to respond because they blocked him, just like myself. I actually have to use this show's profile to see it, which, interestingly enough, they haven't blocked this show on Twitter. So at NICTOPPING, my individual handle on Twitter, that's blocked. I can't see what's going on with Bud Light, but at the Topping Show, they haven't blocked us yet. So that's how I've been seeing that. But if they block that, I'll just use my tech company. I'll use another Twitter handle. The data will still come. I'll get that data. Don't you worry. Now, Rich Mooney's response got 867 views and 11 likes, giving him a ratio of 1.27. Now, you also had someone by the name of Paul A. saying, quote, no one is ever drinking Bud Light again while they watch football or any other time. Just go bankrupt already, unquote. Now, he got 2,549 views and 80 likes. Pretty darn good, giving him a good old ratio of 3.13%. Not too shabby. You also have Id and Ego say, quote, stock up, and it was a GIF, or as the children would say, the GIF, perhaps, but it was a conveyor belt of Coors Light coming down a conveyor belt. And he got 2,347 views and 43 likes, giving a ratio of 1.83%, which is quite impressive because they blocked that. Coors Light coming down a conveyor belt, they blocked that at Bud Light. How sensitive are these people? So they're trying to block everything, and even then, it's mostly negative responses, which is all the power to the fans who are people participating in the boycott. All the power to y'all, because you're doing quite a proficient job, not just at their sales, as they precipitously go down between 27 and 30% compared to the same fiscal week last year. The social media, the boycott is working quite effectively as well. We also have a gal by the name of Hillary saying, quote, can't give it away in Michigan, unquote. And she had a picture which it depicted a 25% rebate. And she got 2,909 views and 57 likes. Pretty good. Giving her a ratio of 1.96%. Now, interestingly enough, some positive responses are brewing to the surface. Now, are they mostly bots or people with no personality? Yes. I did a little research, and a couple of responses, they're all people retweeting for that stupid millions handle on Twitter, which is like a sweepstakes thing where you just have to retweet it and they enter you in a chance to win $100, which it blows my mind how many people acquiesce to those silly types of sweepstakes, but they're I don't know if they set up a profile as a bot to just retweet, but it looks like there is someone who this person appears to be human, which I was shocked. So there's a positive response from an alleged human being. I say alleged, he might be a robot in disguise, but he's hiding quite well. The advances of the Terminator program seem to be coming quite well, perhaps. But nevertheless, this is someone by the name of James Russell. And he said, quote, "Bud Light and football, the great American pastime," unquote. Almost seems too good to be true. And actually, I don't know who would say Bud Light is part of the great American pastime. Like, I mean, the cliche used to be, football, apple pie football. No, actually, no, it's baseball, apple pie, and Chevrolet. There's a good country song, I'm sure, about that. Granted, that just described 86% of country songs, but nevertheless, his response got 4,598 views. So you might think that's a lot of views. He must get a lot of likes. I mean, 4,598? That's more views than I've ever gotten. Though we can fix that today if you just check me out on Twitter, perhaps. Now, or X, whatever Elon wants to call it. Now, he got, again, of that 4,598 views, 12 likes. Just 12. Giving it a ratio of 0.26%. So not so good. Now, I did check out his profile. And interestingly enough, most of his tweets, or posts, whatever you want to call it, they're all about sports. Okay, so maybe he's a sports guy. And it's all, he really hates Trump. He's, a lot of his pejoratively around former President Donald Trump. And a lot of his politically left aligned, where he supported candidates and pejoratively tweeting about candidates he does not like on the right side of the political aisle. So, interestingly enough, maybe that's their new demographic. I say maybe because people on the left they're also boycotting Bud Light. Because, again, Bud Light, they hired Dylan Mulvaney for a collaboration for marketing, gave Dylan Mulvaney that bottle. That bottle is going to be worth a couple $1 million in and of itself, just as a marketing piece of history, as a business blunder of the century of what not to do as a business. But they gave this bottle to Dylan Mulvaney, and they went quiet. So politically speaking, as this has become a political issue, you have people on the left side of the aisle where they notice that the company, and again, this is a quote from a bar owner, they did not, quote unquote, stick up or stand by Dylan Mulvaney. Because they did not do that, people on the left side of the political aisle, they subsequently started to boycott Bud Light as well. This is a holding company in Chicago, which has a lot of gay bars. And this holding company specifically said, we are a gay bar because Bud Light and Anheuser-Busch InBev did not stick with Dylan Mulvaney. We are boycotting all Anheuser-Busch InBev brands. And again, that was a holding company of many bars in the Chicago area. So we've seen this boycott now taking on both sides of the political aisle. And of course, you have people in the middle who are confused, annoyed, and have no idea what the heck is going on. And I just can't help but think maybe this is them trying to grow that side of that customer base, perhaps. But again, I don't think there's enough on that customer base to justify it. Either way, it would probably help the CEO to do something. Right now, he's being very political. He's actually, I would argue, he's more of a politician these days than anything else. But Brendan Whitworth, he's not saying anything, which again isn't solving the issue. And it's not going to solve that 30% drop in sales week over week. Well, 27 to 30% on average sales drop compared to the same fiscal week last calendar year. So I can't help but think the outlook for Bud Light, and now that they combined with a partnership, but Bud Light, Bill Gates just bought, again, what was it, technically $95 million of Bud Light stock. So again, there are people who don't like Bill Gates, so you might have a multiplier effect where now you have two groups of people boycotting Bud Light. So it's almost as if they could make the situation worse. I can't help but think, what will the next sales figures be? I think it's peaked in terms of the highest percentage drop we've seen compared to the last fiscal calendar year for the week sales was 30%. Do you think we'll get to 32%? 35%? How strong could the boycott continue to get as, again, no matter how many people they block on the Twitter, the negative responses are still brewing to the surface. People are still talking about this. This is sports ball season. I mean, people presumably, well, not presumably, they do buy copious amounts of alcohol to, I could only suppose, to help you enjoy the game, to watch those sports balls being thrown all over. That's how you get more excited, so you dull the senses, some might say. Now, that's when they're supposed to have record sales. That's not happening. The times of the year when they had their record sales are now their worst times of the year. So we saw this with the 4th of July. They did terribly. So I can't help but think, as the sports ball season started off, it's going to make the situation worse. So now the shareholders and the board of directors hope. The board of directors, I don't know if they're drunk or just, maybe they're drunk off their own supply. It'd take a copious amount of Bud Light to actually give you a buzz, but nevertheless, perhaps the board of directors are just their senses are so dulled, they don't care that they're losing $400 million in sales Q2 compared to the same time period last year? That's terrible. So I'll be interested to see. Maybe they finally wake up. They go, well, you've lost us a lot of money. They're literally bottling plants that closed because of this. Their employees are getting laid off because of this. At what point does the CEO actually take responsibility for the decisions him and his team made? Will that ever happen? Let me know in the comments. Do you think he will ever step down as CEO? Do you think it will just take one more fiscal quarter of sales dropping precipitously? Or will they give him more time? If you look at the trend of their stock long term, they're still doing okay. Don't get me wrong. It's not like it's dropped like BlackBerry back in the day, but they're still losing all the gains that they would normally have. And even with spending a record amount of money on advertising, it's not increasing the sales. Because again, I keep comparing it to a bad relationship where you have a husband or a wife do something terrible and try to buy back the love. They try to come back home with a trinket, like some flowers or some jewelry. Well, like a little crappy piece of, what is it? Not mica. A little crappy piece of carbon you found in the ground, diamond. That doesn't solve the problem. You're just trying to buy the affection. They're not saying, hey, honey, or whoever you address your partner as, here's specifically where I messed up. Here's what I'm going to do different. Here's why I'm sorry. Not just, here's a gift. And right now, in terms of my perspective on the situation, Bud Light is just saying, here's a gift. Because they're giving out free sports balls tickets, free Bud Light, crazy mail-in rebates. Or it's actually cheaper than water. Now, I know maybe people would say it's so diluted, piss poor, it basically is water. But nevertheless, in some parts of the states, it quite literally is cheaper to buy Bud Light than water. So it'll be interesting to see. It's the definition of insanity to do the same thing again and expect different results. That's what they've been doing. Will they change? Or perhaps the more accurate question is, when will they change? Because they'll have to make a change, presumably. The shareholders aren't going to be happy that, again, Bill Gates is propping it up a little bit with his purchase of stock, but they're not going to be happy with the sales. Because again, the company should be thriving during the sports ball season. They're doing terrible. Let me know in the comments. Do you think this will, maybe they'll get to 35% less sales compared to the same fiscal period last year? It'll be interesting to see, but Magic 8 Ball for Bud Light still says the outlook, it's not so good. And ironically enough, the actual liquid inside a Magic 8 Ball, although it's probably toxic, presumably would taste better than a Bud Light. That's perhaps the burn of the day. Maybe we'll do that. Let me know. Thank you everyone again for taking the time to tune in. We're trying to get to 4,000 subscribers by the end of September. I know it's a tall order, but every click counts. Also, I especially appreciate you taking the time to like and comment. Feedback is always important. It helps the channel grow and develop. It even helps me improve everything from slowing down my speech to trying to be more concise with my speech and try to articulate so you can actually hear me a majority of the time. And my goal is to keep improving that skill set throughout the show. Also, don't forget to take the time to tell your family, tell your friends, tell your coworkers, heck, tell your enemies, tell anyone and everyone. Just stay safe and fight the good fight.